Hey everyone, and welcome to the modeling tutorial for the NASA neon sign. And if you are following along in order to create this NASA neon print, or if you watched the previous video of me assembling the neon into the NASA print, then you are in the right place. Now in this tutorial, I'm going to break everything down so that way you can of course create this design, sketch this, model it, and actually export this to a Cura or whatever slicing software you're using, then of course send this item off to print. Now down below in the description, there will be some resource files that you will need as we will be importing these files into Fusion 360. And of course, if you decide that you'd rather just send the file off to print and not have to deal with any of the modeling, sketching, or the designing that we are going to do in this video today, then the link to purchase the STL file will be down below in the description below. But assuming you do want to learn how to model it yourself, then this video will uncover everything you need to know. Now, first things first, you will of course need to download Fusion 360 onto your computer and open up a new design. Right here on my Fusion 360, this is the actual design itself, and this is the final design that's ready to be printed on a longer LK5 or a printer with a 300 by 300 millimeter build plate. But from here, of course, we're going to start with a new design, and your canvas should look something like this. Now, in order to get started with this project, we'll need to import a reference image onto our canvas, as we will need something to model off of while we are in Fusion. And in order to do that, you need to go up where it says Insert and click on Canvas. From here, you want to import one of those resource files that we have down below. Click on Insert from my computer, and you want to import the NASA_logo file. From here, Fusion 360 will prompt you onto where you should place your image. And I'm going to place the image on this face right here, and I'm going to press OK. From here, we'll want to position our image so that we can see it directly. So what I'm going to do here is click on the top face of this cube right here, and this should automatically redirect you into the top face of the cube here. And then what I'm going to do here is use the scroll wheel and actually scroll into the design itself. Now, the design is actually not sized to exactly what we want it to be just yet. So we'll need to resize it into the proper size in order to model it and to actually send it off to a printer with the right dimensions. From here, we will need to resize our image according to how big we want to print. And in order to do that, we need to go to the left-hand side and click on the drop-down menu for Canvas. Then right-click on that design there and click on Calibrate. From here, what you want to do here, since we are calibrating the design, this essentially allows us to resize the images to any real-world dimension to our liking. And from here, while in the calibration option, we'll of course click the very top middle of this circle here, and it will select the very bottom middle of the circle here. Then once you click that, it should pop up a measurement bar here where it allows you to input certain values. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to input a selection value of 8.3 inches. Now, if you do plan to print this on an Ender 3, Ender 3 Pro, Ender 5, or any 3D printer with a build volume of 220 millimeters by 220 millimeters, then of course sizing this to 8.3 inches will be a great start for you. But if you plan to print this on a bigger printer, such as a longer LK5, CR10, or any printer with a bigger print bed, such as a print bed of 300 millimeters by 300 millimeters, then you could of course adjust it accordingly. For my LK5 video, where I actually designed this, I actually had printed it in a 11.2 inches. So of course, for the sake of this video, I'll be modeling it in an 8.3. From here, I'll of course press enter, and this should immediately resize our image. From here, you'll also notice that our image is actually not quite centered to where our origin point is. And our origin point can be found right here. So we'll actually want to relocate this so it's more into the center of where we want to actually start the modeling process. In order to do that, you can go to the canvas section here and right click on the design there. After that, click on edit canvas, and you should have a new selection where you can actually edit the canvas. You can resize it, you can move it up and left and right, and you can make certain tweaks and changes to your liking. Now, of course, I do want to move it, so I'm going to use this arrow right here And I'm just going to move it appropriately to where it looks like it's centered. From here, the design looks like it is centered into the middle of the screen. So let's just see here. And I say about 0.5 inches in the X distance, looks fine. Now press OK. From here, we can actually begin the sketching process. Now, in order to get started with the sketching process, you need to go to the top left hand of the corner of your screen and click on Sketch. And it's going to prompt you to select a side on where you want to actually start the sketch. From here, I'll just click on this, and it should immediately prompt you into the sketching process or into the sketching part where you can actually start sketching. Next, we'll need to draw a circle that matches the circle of the NASA sign. From here, you want to press C on your keyboard, and that should immediately place it into a circle or open the circle tool. From here, you want to select the origin point, and you want to click on that and actually expand it outward. It should immediately create a circle, and it should automatically give you a measurement of how big the circle actually is. From here, I'm just going to type in 8.3 inches on my keyboard and then press enter. Now, of course, don't worry if the circle does not match exactly the same size or the same measurement of the actual NASA sign, the reference image we just imported, as we are just using that as a background reference, not more so modeling exactly, just more so something we can look at while we're actually taking our time and modeling and sketching everything together. So to actually get started with the designing process, we need to create an offset where we can actually fit our neon strips and our actual wiring, and that's the outside circle that holds the outside white neon in place. So what I'm going to do here is press O on my keyboard, and I'm going to select this outer white line here. I'm going to select on that, and it should prompt you to create an offset of that line here. Now, an offset basically just offsets the existing line in any direction, and it's basically going to be parallel to each other and depending on how much you want to offset it. So you can see this is a 0.1 offset here, is 0.1 inches, and all around is going to be a 0.1 inches in offset. You can also do the same thing internally here. You can make it a -0.1, and you'll see that everything here will reflect, and it will have the same exact measurement throughout the entire offset. From here, we'll need to create a total of 5 offsets. So the very first offset we will create is the very first one that creates the wall for the outside neon. So I'm going to type in the measurement value of -0.075. That will be our first offset. And I'm just going to zoom in here so you can see the measurement value. Now I'm going to bring this out here. Then we'll press the O on our keyboard again, select the exact same line we just used in the first time, and it will create another offset of -0.1. Enter. And I'll just drag this out so you guys can see. We just need 3 more offsets. So I'll press O on my keyboard again, click the line, and I'll type in a value of -0.275. Enter. I'm going to drag this out so you guys can see the value. Press O on my keyboard, and then the value will be a -0.3. Enter. Now we just need 1 more offset, same exact thing. O on our keyboard, press the line, -0.375, enter. Now these are the offsets and the measurements you should have on your screen. If you don't have these measurements, you can of course make changes by double tapping on the numbers here, or excuse me, double clicking, and it should automatically bring up a tab where you can actually change the amount there. By now, you should have a total of 5 offsets with measurements values of 0.075, a 0.1, a 0.275, a 0.3, and a 0.375. The next step of this process is to actually extrude this sketch so we can actually make this into some sort of 3D figure. And as of right now, if we zoom out, everything is an actual 2D sketch and nothing is actually 3D just yet. From here, in order to create our extrude, I'll press E on my keyboard, and I'm going to select these 2 outer lines here. So this is essentially the outer wall that holds in the neon, and this is the outer wall that holds in the neon as well. From here, I'm just going to type in a value of 0.6, And then from here, your options should look exactly what you see on my screen. After that's done, press OK. Now, if you zoom out, you see we actually have a 3D model of the outside circle. Now, of course, we're not done just yet. We'll need to create 2 more extrudes, as this will create the final piece of our circle. So from here, we'll need to repeat this process again. Now, you can see here that once we made our extrusion, the initial sketch has actually disappeared. In order to bring back that sketch, you go to the Sketches tab here and click on the eye icon here, where it should automatically bring back those sketches with our offsets. From here, we'll press E on our keyboard, tap here, and then we'll type in a value of 0.3. Now, before you press enter, make sure your values here are matching mine, and make sure the operation is set to join. If you do not see that it's joined, you may have made a mistake along the process, and I would highly suggest you revisit the last minute of the video. But of course, assuming you have the join operation here, press OK, and this will immediately join this new extruded piece here, as you can see here, with this outside piece here, and this is one entire body there. Now we need to create our last extrusion, and by doing that, we'll press E on our keyboard, select the very middle, and input a value of 0.05, and of course, make sure the operation is joined. Press OK. From here, we finally finished assembling the actual outside circle of the design, and this is fully modeled into a 3D design. For the remainder of this video, you'll find that a majority of this project is just sketching, offsetting, and extruding. There are a total of 4 sketches that we will need to make for this project. The outer circle, in which we just covered, the NASA letters in the middle of the screen, the red line that runs across, and the white circle that wraps around the letters. Now, since we've already completed the outside circle, we can now move on to the very next section. The next section will actually cover the letters in the middle of the screen. Now, for this part, I'll actually be using a different logo than what is represented in the NASA reference image. In order to do that, you can just click on Insert, then click on Canvas, and then import the NASA logo directly onto your plane. Click Open, and I'm gonna select here, and that should immediately import that image there. Now, of course, the letters are actually not centered, so you want to go ahead and make changes where it's centered here. And I'm just going to go ahead and resize it accordingly so it fits right in the middle. And I think that looks fine. From here, I'll press OK. From here, we want to begin the process of actually sketching these letters right here. The only issue is that we can still see our reference image that we have here, and as well as the outside body here. I want our main focus to be focused on the red letters that we actually have in front of our screen. Now, to start the sketch, I actually do want to make these outside reference image, the one behind the circle, and the actual circle itself. So I'll just click on that body here and deselect that. I'll make sure to hide that sketch here, the one we just finished using, and actually hide the reference image in our canvas section here, and then untoggle that. Now, to start the sketch, I want to note that there are 3 separate bodies, meaning that we'll first need to sketch the N, then the AS, and then the A, which are 3 unique sketches, but they will be done at the very exact same time. And in order to do that, we'll be using different tools for this process. We will be using the Control Point Spline tool and the Line tool. The Spline Curve tools allows us to draw around the curved corners, and the Line tool allows us to draw straight lines on straight paths. So to get started, we'll of course create a new sketch, and it should automatically prompt us to select a plane. I'm gonna select that plane right there. And from here, I'm going to use the Line tool to actually start sketching the N on the left-hand side. Press L on my keyboard, and I'm going to start this process right here, right below the N on the left-hand side, and actually just draw a straight line upwards till I meet right around here. After that, I'm going to press the checkbox here, and you should have a line that looks like this. From here, we'll switch to the control point spline tool. In order to do that, you can press S on your keyboard and type in control. And then you should automatically have control point spline. Click on that, and it should automatically give you the option or open the tool of actually making the control point spline. From here, you'll just want to kind of draw around these curves right here, and I'm actually going to start from the end of our line previously. So I'm going to select that, draw another, and just keep clicking around the edges until it kind of matches evenly. Now, of course, you'll see that these are actually not lined up accordingly just yet, and all I did was just click on each corner here. Now, the reason for that is that it's not supposed to be perfect just yet. So just leave it as is and we'll move on back to the sketching process. From here, I'll select the L tool again, which is the line tool. Click on the end path for the spline. Go all the way down till I reach right around here and press the checkbox here. Then I'm using the exact same thing. I'm gonna switch to the spline tool, control point spline, click that, and I'm gonna just go around this curve here and just click around it there. And then press the checkbox here. Next thing, I'm gonna switch back to my line tool and just kind of finish up the process right around there. And press the checkbox there. Now, of course, once you finish drawing the actual N, you want to go back here and actually revisit the parts where it's actually not curved exactly to the design itself. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to go ahead and use these little dots here and start moving it around to adjust it according to the actual reference image that we imported. From here, you can see that everything looks a lot cleaner. The curves right here match the design itself, and we have a proper sketch that matches the actual shape of the letter we have here. Now, we will of course repeat the process of creating an offset for this letter, and I can do that by pressing O on my keyboard and tapping the line here. From here, I'll type in a measurement of -0.075, press enter. I'm gonna offset again by pressing O, tap the line, -0.1, enter, offset, tap the line, -0.275, offset, -0.3, offset, -0.375, enter. Now, as you can see that we have finished creating our offset and we've finished creating the sketch for the letter N. Now, of course, if you were to try to extrude this, Fusion 360 will not allow you to do that. Now, the reason why is because it's still not considered a closed sketch, meaning that you can see that this cannot be extruded because this is still actually opened and this is not closed. So we need to close this gap here in order to make this an extrudable object. In order to do that, we'll go ahead and zoom into the pieces that are open. And with our line tool, I'm gonna press L on my keyboard, select the end of one side, and just draw it all the way to the very end. I'm gonna repeat this process for this bottom end right here. And now we have a fully closed sketch in which is now ready to extrude. Now, before we do that, we'll actually go ahead and start sketching the remainder of the letters, which is the AS and the A right here. The AS is just actually one entire piece, so we'll be sketching this as one, and in the A, it's just by itself, so that'll be a different sketch. Now, with everything we've covered so far, you should have the exact knowledge and tools necessary in order to actually sketch these letters right here. So I'm going to go ahead and sketch this process here, and I'll show you the final product. Okay, now that I have the AS fully sketched, I'm going to go ahead and get started with the offsetting process. Okay, so now that I have offsetted the pieces, you'll notice that there is a small little issue that appears when you finish offsetting the actual AS. And you can see at the bottom left hand side that the offsets don't properly match. You can see if I were to actually close this, this would actually give us a different look than what we actually intended. Now, in order to fix this, I'm gonna press Command Z on my keyboard, as we actually do not even need that line. Instead, this is actually an easy fix and it looks a lot simpler than it is. And what you need to do here is just go ahead and create a straight line and just kind of match it accordingly to what it should line up from this point here. And Fusion 360 should automatically kind of give you a line on where it should match. So from right here, I'm just going ahead and connect this. And then just go ahead and connect the end of the lines to that first line you just created there. And now we have that fully closed section right here that matches the actual A of what we're, or the A design that we're going for. Go ahead and complete the same process for the S at the top right. And now you have a fully sketched AS for the NASA sign. Now, once you finish that process, you'll go ahead and complete the exact same process for the letter A right here. You'll go ahead and actually sketch the A right here, then create the offset and go ahead and actually close the gaps that will appear right here. Okay, so once you are finished, your final product should look something like this on what you see on my screen. The next part of this process is to actually extrude the letters the very exact same way we actually extruded the outer circle prior to this. And the measurements will be listed on the screen, so you can go ahead and repeat this process. Using the extrude tool, you press E on your keyboard, press the outer lines, and then type in the measurements listed on your screen. So once you finish with the extrusion process, your letters should look something like this. They should be fully modeled into a 3D design. They should already be extruded and they should be set accordingly to the actual reference image that we put early on in the video. Now, what I'm going to go ahead and do here is untoggle or toggle back on the actual body of our previous design here and just kind of see exactly what it looks like. And I'm actually going to hide the second image we imported. And from here, you should see that our design looks very nice so far. We have the outer circle here, and we have the letters inside, or the letters inside of the actual circle itself. The next step is to repeat this exact same process for the outside red line, and as well as for the white circle that goes around the actual letters. So in order to do that, we'll go ahead and hide the outside circle as we do not need it for this piece. And we'll go ahead and create a new sketch and select the plane. From here, what I'm going to go ahead and do here is that now that we have multiple sketches, I do want to start renaming these accordingly to exactly what our sketches are called and what they're a reference to. So this new sketch is going to be titled Red Streak, as we'll be sketching the red streak that goes along here. Now, with the sketch menu opened up, I do want to clarify that with this new sketch, we are going to segment this red streak into 3 different parts. We have the small red streak at the bottom left, we have the big streak at the very bottom, and we have the long streak that curves at the very top right. This will actually be 3 sketches, and this will be very similar to the actual letters that we just sketched early on in the video. Now, using the spline tool, what I'm going to go ahead and do is actually start sketching this part right here. Now, don't worry, it doesn't have to look too complicated, and it's actually much easier than you might look. With the spline tool, I'm gonna select that tool, and I'm just curve this around the outside, where it just reaches out, and then curve it back in, all the way to right around here. And of course, I'm not matching it exactly to the exact reference of our reference image, and the reason for that is because if we were to try to do that on on the 8.3 profile that we have right now, it actually very likely would not fit on our Ender 3 Pro or on a smaller format printer. So I'm just gonna kind of tweak around here without going too crazy. And I think something that looks like this looks just fine. It kind of matches the streak. Could you make it bigger? Yes, of course, but just keep in mind, try not to go too far out. And from here, I think this looks great. The next part of this process is to actually start the offset. So press O on our keyboard, same exact thing using the measurements on your screen, and start offsetting. You can see now that our actual sketch here is starting to look more like the streak that we have in that prior video. And of course, if you want to change any of the changes that you made on that sketch, you can of course still make those changes. You can adjust the line accordingly. I'm just gonna make a small change here. The next step is to actually close these gaps here. And then you should have a fully sketched sketch in which you can actually extrude if you wanted to. We'll go ahead and repeat this exact same process for this little red streak right here. And of course, I do want this almost touching this letter N right here, as these will be connecting via wire through the electrical wiring that goes throughout the sign. So using the spline tool, exact same thing. Offsetting. Now I have the little small streak that goes here. Now, of course, you want to make sure that if you can eyeball this, that this kind of matches in the same way. So if this was going parallel, or going straight, you want to imagine it going straight into this line here. Of course, there's no neon that's going straight into it, so you're just gonna have to imagine it in a way. So just gonna make changes here, close this gap here. Now we have our second streak completed. The last one we need to create is this long one right here. Repeat the process. Perfect. Now by the end of this, you should have something that looks like this. You should have a total of 3 sketches here, 1 sketch here, 1 sketch here, and 1 sketch here. And now we can begin extruding these pieces. Press E on my keyboard, outside line here, 0.6, extrude. Now your sketch may go away. In order to toggle back your sketch, untoggle it back here, and we begin the extrude process here. Perfect. Once you finish extruding those pieces, you should have something that looks like this. And if I were to toggle back the outside circle in which we created early on in the video, you should have a final product that looks like this. Now, of course, it's not completed yet. As you can see, this body right here is overlapping with the new extruded piece we just created just now. Don't worry about these things just yet. We'll cover that later on in the video. The last thing to sketch is the actual outside circle here, and this one's fairly simple. And for this one, the best part about this one is that you actually don't even have to hide any of the outside bodies by any means. You're gonna just, of course, go ahead and get started with the sketching process. From here, create a new sketch, select the plane, and go ahead using my spline tool, just start sketching around the white circle here. Once you finish your sketch, you should have something that looks like this. So now, quick disclaimer, if at any point you feel like there's certain pieces of your sketch that kind of don't line up properly, or maybe you need to make changes, you can of course revisit that sketch by clicking on that sketch you just made, double click, and it should open it back up and it will remove the extruded pieces. Now, of course, you can still make changes with the extruded pieces in the same way. So for example, I can actually move these lines, but Fusion 360 will have to work overtime in order to do that, and it might actually slow down my computer and crash the program. Of course, I don't want that to happen, so I'd rather just work on the pieces on a 2D sketch, as it's much easier for my computer. And just go ahead, there was something that I did not like, so I'm just gonna go ahead and make a quick fix here and just kind of adjust it appropriately. Okay, so I finalized the process of putting everything together. These are the four main components. We have the outside circle, we have the actual inside piece here, the white streak inside, we have the red streak that goes outside, and we have the actual letters here. Now, as you can see here, if we were to drop down the menu for bodies, you'll see we have a bunch of different pieces, all kind of just separated from each other, which is totally fine. Now, of course, if we were to send this off to print, it would not be completed, and the reason for that is that this is still closed, so it would still be wrong. You can see here, if we were to take a look, these walls from this line here, it's blocking off where the neon fits to the red streak. Additionally, we still need to add holes so we can have the wiring fit right through the actual letters itself. And on this side as well, these faces right here are actually blocking this red streak. Additionally, if we were to print this as is as well, there's actually nothing holding these pieces together. So for example, this is actually one entire separate piece that would just come off the design, and there's actually nothing attaching to it. So in order to fix that, we need to create an extrusion for the actual outside circle here, but on the inside. So in order to do that, you can go ahead and toggle the very first sketch that we had early on in the video, and it should automatically give you an option to click on this piece right here, and it should automatically be highlighted. So you'll click on that, press E on your keyboard. I'm gonna just click it again, and I'm gonna type in a value of 0.05. Now, it might prompt you to cut into these pieces, which that's the wrong operation. You want to select join, and make sure join is selected. From here, press OK. And now all of the bodies that we just saw early on are now one entire body. As you can see, when I select this, everything's selected. There's no more N as its own separate body or the AS as its own separate body. This is now one entire piece, and I'm gonna go ahead and name this NASA sign. Enter. Now, of course, we'll want to save this project, so go ahead and click on save and just title it to whatever you'd like. Just name it to NASA Project Design. Press save. Perfect. We are about 75% of the way done, and we are pretty much close to completion. Now at this point, it's pretty much just minor details that we need to fix, and as well as fixing up some things so we can actually set this up for assembly. Once those minor details are fixed, then we'll actually get started with creating the necessary holes where we can actually fit the wiring through the design. That way we can have a clean looking design where the wiring can sit firmly and securely into the design itself, and being able to hold everything together. So the first thing we need to do is actually delete the necessary faces that are blocking the red streaks from actually being put on the design. You can see we actually have this outside circle actually blocking this red streak right here, and we actually do want a firm or a full set of neon that goes all the way through in a straight line, and this circle will be cut off. This will be its own neon here, and this one will be its own neon here. So in order to delete these faces here, it's a very simple process. You're going to select on this face here, select on this face here, and you just want to select all the faces that are blocking that. So I'm going to select this one in here, select everything in the middle here. Let's see. This side. And by the end of it, you should have something that looks like this. Now I'm holding shift on my keyboard to select all of these options here, and I'm just scrolling around so you can see exactly what this looks like. Okay, on your screen you should have something like this selected. From here, I'm gonna press delete on my keyboard, and Fusion 360 will know that I want to delete those faces. And you can see this does not affect my existing design, other than just actually deleting those faces that were right here. You'll repeat the same process for this side. So I'll select this face here, select the other face here, then select the interior faces in the middle here, this face here, this one right here, this line here. And from here you should have something that looks like this, and press delete. Now those faces are deleted. We'll repeat this process for the very top red streak here, perfect. Now we have all the red streaks set up and we're good to go. Now, there is one final piece that we need to delete, and this is the actual piece that goes right here. Now, the reason for this is that we actually do not want to fit a small strip of neon here, as we could probably fit one, but it would be a little bit difficult and tedious, and you just do not want extra work on your hands, especially small spaces like this. They're a little bit more tedious. So I'm gonna just go ahead and delete this and delete this side here and repeat this process here. Oops. I accidentally let go of shift. And from here, I'm gonna just press delete. And now everything should be closed. And I think everything looks great so far. Now I do want to double check and make sure everything looks fine, because whenever you delete faces, sometimes Fusion 360 might make a mistake. You want to make sure everything that gets deleted in the process doesn't delete any things that we do not want to delete. So I'm just going ahead and checking out these little interior lines here. I'm just making sure, as you can see, that I deleted these faces here, and automatically Fusion 360 closed this little gap that we had previously. So I'm just double checking everything, but it appears to me everything looks fine and we're pretty much set with the actual design itself. The last thing we need to set up is the actual holes where the wiring will go through. So I'm actually going to untoggle these sketches, as I do not need to see those blue lines. And now we're just left with the actual body of the NASA sign. Okay. So I'm just revisiting the sign, just making sure everything looks fine. And it even matches our reference image, which is great, but I'm going to go ahead and hide that, as we don't need that. And everything looks good. Perfect. Okay, great. So with that said, we'll go ahead and get started with creating holes for this project. Now, of course, we'll actually need a hole that actually goes to the actual design itself at the very bottom, as we'll need some sort of outlet that connects to the actual wiring of the neon. So if you're gonna go and click on this hole tool right here at the very top left, click on that, scroll down to the very bottom right here, and just click on the middle right there. And I'm gonna set this to a radius of 0.3. and make sure it's centered in the middle as much as you can. So for example, if you're looking at this little outside line and outside line here, make sure it's centered, because if you have it way over here, when you're printing it, it may not come out as the way you intended. But of course, this is your design, and press enter. Okay, now we have a hole. This is big enough to fit the wiring, so there should be no issues. Of course, you can make it smaller as well. If you plan to hang this up on a wall, create another hole here. Press enter. Great. Now you have two holes, one where you could fit a push pin in, and one where you have the wiring coming out. The next thing is to create the wiring where the wiring fits inside the neon, or it fits inside the sign itself, and where it connects to the actual letters and the white streaks here. So if you were to imagine, when we have the wiring coming through this hole, you have the wiring sitting in, and it has to connect to this white right here. Then it has to connect to this one. Then it has to connect to this one. Then it has to connect to this outside one right here too. Now, of course, the way neon works is that you can have several connections. So if I have one wire here, I could have one coming out right here, and I could have another one that's also powering this red strip here. Okay, so if power flows through this strip here, that means power is also flowing through this red strip here. Or yeah, to the red strip here. So I can have the red strip powering this one right here, and the red strip powering this one right here. Now, of course, what I'm really getting to is that when I'm creating something like this, I want to hide the wiring as much as I can. That's probably the biggest issue when it comes to neon signs, is that the wiring, you cannot hide it. It has to exist somewhere. But the goal of this is to hide it in the appropriate place, so when the person looks at it, or the viewer, or whoever is looking at it, they would not be able to tell where it is, because it's so discreetly hidden. And with this project, as you can see, if I were to use the section analysis tool, of course you don't have to do any of this. I'm just showing you guys. You can see all of our wiring fits right in here within this 0.25 crevice that we've created here. You can see this is a 0.5 and then this was a 0.3 height here. We have a 0.25 inches of space to fit all the wiring in here, which is great. And this goes through along the entire piece of the project. So if I were to go back, just cancel the section analysis, home. This essentially is set up to have all the wiring fit in place, and as well as the neon sitting on top of it, snug and fit. So let's go ahead and create the holes. And the holes we'll need a hole for this line right here, this side here, this one right here, this one right here. So we'll have a total of 2 right here, 2 right here, 2 right here, and 2 right here. So it's very simple. Go ahead and zoom in. I'm gonna scroll to this side here, select hole, select here. You should automatically give you the option to extrude into the wall there, and it should automatically be a hole. Of course, you can make the adjustments here. Up in there, hole. And I'm gonna go ahead and actually create a hole here. So I'm gonna just adjust it accordingly. Make sure you're not going too low. As you can see, I can actually see the grid of my canvas. I just want it to hit just barely, but not actually touching the bottom floor of the design itself. And press enter. Now you see we have a hole here. Same exact thing on this side. Now as you notice on my screen, there's something a little bit different, and I'll show you how to fix that in just a second. Just press enter, and you can see that this is actually not even a hole. It's still closed off. You can see that there's a hole here, but it's actually still closed off on this side. So you want to go ahead and just delete those faces there. Delete, and Fusion 360 knows what to do. So now you have 2 holes. You have a hole where the wiring can fit in through here, and one that fits through here. Perfect. Replicate this process for this little small piece right here. I'm gonna start on this side, hole, click, and of course you can move the hole anywhere you want in any direction. Enter. I think I'm gonna redo this one. Repeat the process, hole. Of course, a different alternative, if you'd like, is that if you prefer not to make holes in the design, one additional thing you could do is probably just delete these faces right here. So you imagine there's a red streak here, but you can actually delete this face right here, this little section right here, so you have the neon actually touching each other. Now, of course, it's totally optional. That is separate on its own. That's just deleting the faces just like we did early on in the video. But of course, I'm just sticking to the original plan or the original design and just creating holes appropriately. And I also did like having those sections sectioned off. It does make it easier on me, and it does just use slightly less material, but of course it's just very little that's used. So same exact thing, repeat this process, create a hole. Oops, not one there. And there we go. Now we have the holes for our red streak. Now we need a couple of more holes for the letters. So the way I set this up is that everything should be able to connect on the outside, okay? But this red line here will connect to this line here. So there's a little bit of wiring that will go through here, but you will not notice it as they're really closely connected. So this will connect to this red streak here, connect to this white line here, okay? This one, same exact thing. It will connect to this bottom piece here. The red streak here connects to the white, and I like to stick it that way. Of course, you can have it however way you want, but I'm just kind of showing you the way I did it. Now, this is where I actually connect to the letters. The red streak also connects to these letters here, this one connects to this A, as it's really close and you wouldn't even be able to tell this little small spot where the wiring would fit. So I'll just create a hole in this top A here. Enter. You can see it created those faces again, so it's okay, just delete them. Let's see. Okay, so if it doesn't delete, I'll do a press pull option here. Okay, there it goes. I just selected one single face and it deleted. Perfect. Same thing. So this A right here connects to this strip here. What about the N? This should be able to connect the N right here, but of course, prefer not to just have it kind of wrap around here. You can just create a hole right here on the end here. Perfect. Now you have the red wiring, the red neon, and the wiring that goes in there fit into this little hole right there. Then the N needs to connect to the A right here. So just do this, and I'm actually going to have it extrude all the way to the A here. Perfect. And delete that face because we don't need it. See, hopefully it deletes. Perfect. And I'm gonna connect this A to the S right here. And then there we go. Now we have the appropriate holes for the entire design. Go ahead and save this. I'm gonna press Command S. Okay. Now as you can see, we have all the wiring where you can fit all the way around the circle. And then we have wiring where it fits through the letters here. So if you imagine wiring going through here, it can fit through here, this A right here. And it also fits through this A right here. What I'm really aiming for is to hide the most amount of wiring as possible. Of course, you will slightly see it if you pay close attention, but if you were to have this lit up, you would not see it at all. It's nearly impossible. I'd say one additional hole I would make is probably to this S where it connects to this one right here and to this one right here, or to whatever, it doesn't really matter. But it's okay if you make more holes than necessary. It's not a big deal. Whatever you feel comfortable with to make it easier on you. And now I have the final product here. So if I wanted to connect this line right here to this one right here, I could. Or if I wanted to connect this one to here and have this one connect to here, then I could. Or if I just want to have no connection here at all, so this one powers here, that'd be fine. But then I would have to have this go through here and then have the A power this one here too. And that'd be fine too. And whether we use a hole or not, it's totally fine. You can't really tell during the print or when you're in use. But other than that, this looks great so far. So with that said, we've pretty much completed the process of modeling this from start to finish. Now, what you'll want to do now is actually put this in some sort of slicing software. Now, of course, I would highly recommend saving this as an STL file first. Now we have the STL version of this in hand. You'll click on File, click on Export, and you'll just name it to whatever you'd want. From type, you'll click on STL and then just save it to the location and then press export. Now, if you'd rather just import this directly to your slicing software, all you need to do is just go to project design at the very top, or excuse me, go to the body section here, right click on the body and click on save as mesh. Now, Fusion 360 has this awesome feature where it allows you to export this file directly into Cura or to whatever slicing software you have. So selection is this design here, and you want to select the unit type as millimeters here, okay? From here, refinement should be set to high, preview mesh is fine. Now I'm gonna send this to Cura, press OK. And if I were to bring Cura onto my panel here, you can see that it opens it up in Cura, which is excellent. This is the final design in which I could send this off to print. And I'm just going to adjust this accordingly. So kind of rotate this. It's going extremely slow for some reason, but dang, why is it doing this? I'm just going to resize this just a little bit. I'll say 218, and I'll center this. Okay, Cura is lagging really badly for me, but okay, let me just resize this one more time as the final sketch. 217. Let's see here. And of course, you need to play with this. This does fit in Cura with the 218 settings, just that my computer is just going really slow. It's not turning. Okay, well, regardless, I'm gonna just make this a little smaller. It does fit with the 218, it's just my computer just does not want to work with me right now. But as you can see, we have the final product here. Of course, you can curve it around to your liking. Let's see, why is it doing this? Okay, so I finally got Cura to work with me here. For some reason, it was just not wanting to work with me. I actually had to set this at a 215. Now, of course, I had to resize it only because it just wasn't working with me. You can have it to a 218. It does work with the 218. You just have to rotate it accordingly. Of course, it has to be kind of the exact rotation in a way where it fits on the print bed. Initially, it was at a 218 point something something, but I had just changed it just a little bit to a 215. For some reason, it's just my Cura is just bugging out. I don't know, maybe I have to restart it. But it fits just perfectly in here. You can see I'm using a 0.6 nozzle. I would print this on an Ender 5. And these are my settings, of course. I would highly recommend using your own settings. These are settings that work for me. Not to say that these will work for you. But if I go ahead and slice this, you would see that Cura will go ahead and actually slice the file for me. And as you can see, this would take about 4 hours and 21 minutes in order to print this design on my Ender 5. And of course, I could probably tweak some more settings and make adjustments if I wanted to in order to print this faster. But overall, I think this looks absolutely amazing. This, this is a start to finish process of assembling this and creating this in Fusion 360 and having something that we can actually print on our 3D printer. Now, with that said, I hope you guys had enjoyed this video. Did you guys liked it, enjoyed it? Let me know your guys' thoughts and comments down below in the comment section down below. Any thoughts or feedback will be greatly appreciated, as I want to make future videos that are insightful, informative, and actually show you exactly how to model things from start to finish so that you guys can take this and use it for your own future projects. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you came here from the assembly video, the DIY video, make sure to go ahead and go back to that video once you have your final STL or your final product ready to go and actually assemble, as I will show you exactly how to assemble these pieces together. Of course, a link to that video will be down below in the description, that we can click that video and go back to that video as well. Now, of course, if you had some trouble with this design, or maybe you just could not get it to work for whatever reason, the option to purchase this file will be, of course, open to you. You absolutely do not have to do it, but if you do rather purchase the file and actually have to go through the entire process of modeling this, that will be available down to you down below in the comments or the description down below. So with that said, I hope you guys have found this video informative, insightful, and useful, and I hope to see you guys in a future video. Take care, everyone.